The 78th United Nations General Debate is underway as part of a period of high-level discussions that runs through September 26. In the United States, the Auto Workers Union reaches its sixth day of strike and threatens to expand the measure to more factories if there is no progress in negotiations. Azerbaijan authorities confirmed the suspension of its military operations in the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh after the Armenian forces announced that they will lay down their arms in ceasefire. Hello from the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. On Wednesday, the general debate of the 78th session of the UN General Assembly moves forward as the world leaders address the different conflicts in favor of peace and accelerate action on the 2030 agenda. The world leaders continue to discuss global issues on the second day of the general debate of the UN Assembly. Among the topics discussed are the steps to be taken to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda and its sustainable development goals, as well as the different global challenges to advance peace and security. Some of the interventions that took place during Tuesday's afternoon session included those of the President of Bolivia, Luis Arce Catacora, the President of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, the Head of State of Iran, Ebrahim Raisi, among others. During his speech at the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, Bolivia's President Luis Arce Catacora warned about poverty and inequality in the world and the serious consequences of not addressing that global problem today.
Eliminating poverty and inequality today will prevent unimaginable conflicts of economic distribution and environmental conflict in the future. To build trust, we need to abandon petty interests and work through reciprocity. For example, by freeing all transfers of technology that enable us to save lives and restore Mother Earth. In order to revive global solidarity, we need to recognize each other and our relations within the context of all of us being humans. For example, in the context of climate change, let us recall that each state needs to earmark resources for the damage and loss fund, in proportion to the historic responsibility that should be shouldered with regard to producing greenhouse gases.
The President of Bolivia also referred to the role of the United Nations in the face of a new world order in the international scheme.
Pending challenges continue to be many and enormous, and today we find ourselves, however, at the dawn of a new international configuration. We are convinced that we are bearing witness to the building of a new international order, a situation whereby the United Nations and the General Assembly needs to uphold the principles for which it was created and play a vital role. A new world order where we can all participate equally, with equal rights and obligations, without impositions of any kind, without any masters or slaves, without double standards to measure some and others, without sanctions or those that are sanctioned. This needs to be a new order where solidarity would prevail. Complementarity and collaboration need to go above and beyond egotism and pettiness.
Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez, on the other hand, sentenced in one part of his speech that it was possible or impossible to look for equality in the world by keeping the same paradigm that has generated inequality.
It is impossible to want to achieve an equitable future by promoting and continuing the same paradigms that have generated inequality in which we live. International financial engineering has demonstrated that it is abusive and it is unchanged. How can we achieve sustainable development without financing that contributes to this. The international financial system has not demonstrated a determination to adapt itself to a world that wants to restore a lost equality. Quite to the contrary, it only seeks to impose the same orthodox policies that have deepened inequality and misery around the world. The global financial architecture only serves to concentrate income in the hands of the few and to marginalize vast regions of the world. It embraces speculative activity rather than development. It promotes cheap labor rather than dignifying labor.
Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi also took the floor at the UN General Assembly and, among other things, called a failure the intention to spread the United States ideals throughout the world.
We find ourselves at a critical junction in history. The global landscape is also undergoing a paradigm shift towards an emerging international order, a trajectory that is not reversible. The equation attributed to the hegemony of the West no longer resonates with the diverse realities of today's world. The former old liberal order, catering to the ambitions of voracious rulers whose hunger has no end, and to that of the capitalist, has been relegated to obsolescence. In short, to endeavor to universalize American ideals throughout the world have proven to be failures.
Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu called for cooperation and commitment from the international community and especially the African nations in order to achieve the 2030 Agenda and the sustainable development.
Are significantly different from those of post-war Europe. We are not asking for identical programs and actions.
The Nigerian leader also said his country is negotiating with Niger's military government and with ECOWAS authorities to find a solution to that country's political crisis.
Regarding Niger, we are negotiating with the military leaders. As chairman of ECOWAS, I seek to help establish democratic governance in a manner that addresses the political economy challenges confronting that nation, including violent extremists who seek to foment instability in our region. I extend a hand of friendship to all of you who may genuinely support this mission for a democratic governance in that nation.
Senegal's President Macky Sall expressed his concern about the problems faced by millions of people today in the world and cited as most serious ones poverty, violence and inequalities, and called the international community to address these issues in a concerted way.
For millions of people, daily life is one of fear, violence, poverty, and inequalities. Many countries continue to suffer for the economic and social impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Climate change has reached an unprecedented level. The tragedy of illicit migration reminds us of the need to implement the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration, and to continue to combat the criminal networks that are organizing this illicit traffic in human beings.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, the Auto Workers Union reaches its sixth day of strike and threatens to expand the measure to more factories if there is no progress in negotiations. The United Auto Workers Union increased pressure on the so-called Detroit Big Three by threatening to expand their strike unless they make progress in negotiations by Friday. Furthermore, in a video statement, Union President Shawn Fain said that employees at more plants will join those of their sixth day of strike at their three plants. With workers from different states joining the picket line, the ripple effect is expected to be felt far and wide. Therefore, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis said they want to resolve the strike and refrained from directly criticizing the threat. And in this context, the union and the three companies have been negotiating since July to sign a new collective bargaining agreement for the next 4 years. But the union claims that the companies are not negotiating in good faith. The UAW union is demanding a 46% wage increase over 4 years, the reinstatement of traditional pensions, the reduction of working hours, and the unionization of workers in battery production plants. They also claim to use the strategy of selective strikes in different plants to put more pressure on the companies, so the number of plants out of work will increase as the negotiations continue. A study published in August pointed out that a 10-day strike by the workers of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis will have a cost of $5 billion. Peace talks between the Colombian government and the Central General Staff, EMZ, of the FARC dissidents are moving forward. From the municipality of Suarez in the department of Cauca, the delegations announced the constitution of a new dialogue table on October the 8th in the city of Tibú in the Caratumbo region. Likewise, the parties announced the beginning of a bilateral ceasefire that will last for a period of 10 months. In addition, the delegation of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the FARC announced various gestures of goodwill, among which stands out the non-intervention in the electoral processes, as well as the liberation of military and members of the National Liberation Army held by its dissidents. The Colombian army withdrew at least 18 members of its ranks due to threats to the civilian population in the municipality of Tierra Alta. In an official statement, Army Commander Luis Mauricio Espina announced the decision to remove 8 professional soldiers, 6 officers, and 4 non-commissioned officers on the grounds that their behavior compromised the principles and values of the military institution. The decision was the result of an investigation carried out regarding the events of September 11th in the village of Bocas del Manso in the department of Córdoba, when a group of armed men posing as dissidents of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, wearing dark clothing and covering their faces, threatened the civilian population of the area, including pregnant women and children.
The Army Command, taking into account the need to apply administrative measures independent from those that can be adopted in the disciplinary and criminal fields, within the legal powers stipulated in Decree Law 1790 of the year 2000, Article 100, has decided to dismiss 6 officers and 4 non-commissioned officers, whose actions have compromised the principles and values of the institution. On the other hand, by decision of the Army Commander, and in accordance with the provision of Decree 1793 of the year 2000, Article 13, it was ordered the retirement of 8 professional soldiers.
In Argentina, trade unions mobilized on Tuesday to the Congress in support of the elimination of the income tax law. Several trade union organizations mobilized in support of the analysts and approval of the income tax elimination bill to be debated in the Chamber of Deputies, which will leave more than 800,000 workers, female and male retirees, from paying the tax. The initiative was promoted last week by the Minister of Economy and presidential candidate of Unión por la Patria, Sergio Massa, and received the support of all the labor centrals and trade unions. And we have a second short break coming up. But before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, and there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, the top stories, the special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We have a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Azerbaijan authorities on Wednesday confirmed the suspension of its military operation in the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh after the Armenian forces announced that they will lay down their arms and ceasefire. The Azerbaijani Defense Ministry reported that an agreement was reached with the enclave's Armenian authorities through the mediation of the Russian peacekeeping contingent. It was reported that the Armenian armed forces units will have to leave the territory of Azerbaijan, and the illegal Armenian armed formations will be disbanded after withdrawing all their heavy weapons. The Russian peacekeeping contingent deployed in Nagorno-Karabakh since the 2020 ceasefire will ensure the implementation of the withdrawal, disarmament, and disbanding of the Karabakh units. On Wednesday in Palestine, local media reported that the Israeli army killed 4 people during an assault on the Jenin refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. Medical sources confirmed the death of 29-year-old Ara Yasser Musa from the village of Morka, south of Jenin, who succumbed to injuries sustained by Israeli occupation forces. Prior, the Palestinian Health Ministry had reported the killing of 3 young men who had been shot by Israeli soldiers. They also said that some 30 people were injured and many cases of suffocation by tear gas. In the meantime, on Wednesday, locals called a general strike in the city of Jenin and its refugee camp in mourning for the 4 Palestinians killed and in rejection of the continuing Israeli aggression. On Tuesday, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu arrived in Tehran for meetings with senior Russian officials. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the visit will contribute to strengthening Russian-Iranian military ties and will be an important stage in the development of cooperation between the two countries. After the imposition of Western sanctions on Russia following the start of the special operation in Ukraine in February 2022, Tehran and Moscow have deepened their bilateral ties and cooperation in the military sphere. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.